The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and good morning to Dr. Veena Kumar. So we will start in just a minute or two. Just wait for any late stragglers who are having difficulty connecting. I'll take a few minutes just talking in general about the presentations, and then Veena Kumar is going to actually make a more formal presentation because of our expertise in this field of making presentations. And then we'll take questions and discussions about making presentations as well as the program in Madurai and Noida. So look forward to that. Okay, Veena, I made you the presenter, so you can just click show my screen.
Okay. Is it visible, Krishna?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so I'll get started with a couple of minutes of general comments about the conference, and then I'll hand it over back to you.
Absolutely.
Okay, good afternoon,
Perfect.
everybody. It's great to have a bunch of you here who are seriously interested in learning more about presenting at this conference that we have in January in a couple of weeks. Just like any other situation, I think all of us who are teachers, many teachers assume that they know how to teach, but but not necessarily, because teaching itself is a skill, and so people have to learn how to be better teachers, and so that's how we have certification programs and various programs that we have with ICTIEE and with all the consortium members and faculty to various programs. The same way, I think making a presentation is also something that I think a lot of faculty, a lot of people who make presentations assume, what's the big deal? Yes, and let's just walk up and make a presentation, so I don't have to do any preparation. And Veena Kumar will talk about a lot of the important aspects of making presentations. But just want to start with a few comments about the conference itself. As you all know, we have two locations. One is in Noida, the one is another in Madurai. So in Noida, it is on the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and then in Madurai, it's on the 8th and 9th. So we have been also discussing among ourselves and various other people about the format for the paper presentations, and we want to every year make gradual improvements. It's not easy to do that, but we want to make gradual improvements in the quality of the sessions and in what participants learn from participating in this conference. And just like in the case of teaching, we are all used to a certain way of teaching. In the old way of teaching, where you would stand up in front of a class of maybe 50 students, and then talk for 50 minutes with writing on the board all the time, or reading something, or talking, and continuously doing, and the students are passive, sitting back, bored, and not really learning anything, doing that passive mode of teaching. And we have learned that during our certification program and various other programs that we have, that we need to engage the students interactively, and the attention span is actually only 10 minutes, and unless we actively engage them, they are not going to really learn anything. So that the interaction is very important, active interaction. And so we're trying to make our conference also move in that direction. Most conferences are still in the passive mode, where you would have hundreds of people in the audience, and then some big shot standing on the stage and going on and on and on, and boring everybody. Maybe a few good things, but most of the time, people in the audience are probably looking at their cell phones, or maybe thinking about something else, or maybe quietly chatting among themselves. So that kind of conference is not very productive and does not give any takeaways for the participants. And I think you all have been to such conferences and been part of those conferences and have come back wondering why you even went to such a conference. So we are hoping that this would be a little bit different. But again, we will have certain limitations, time limitations, and so on. So we are trying to have these different sessions as panel discussions, and embed your presentations within panel discussions. So this is the current way we're looking at it. We will send you more details by the end of this week about which panel you're in, and how the discussions will be. Each panel will be will be for about 2.5 hours. The first half an hour, we will have some international expert who will talk for only 10 minutes maximum. Okay, each one will talk for 10 minutes on this broad theme of that particular panel, which contains papers also related to that particular panel. And for example, it might be engineering educational research, or maybe dynamic classroom, or maybe using technology, or maybe outcomes assessment. So there'll be 3 experts, some from India, some from outside, who will talk for 10 minutes based on their experiences. And then each author, the authors will be making their presentations, and the authors will get 8 minutes to make their presentations. And we're going to be extremely strict about this. I'm going to instruct, and the panelists will be the ones who will be the monitors and hold you to your time. And since there will be lots of presenters involved, we're going to have break up the larger group into 2 groups. And 5 presentations in each group, with the second group going into a neighboring room. And so if we have 4 or 5 presentations within 1 hour, if we stick strictly to time 8 minutes, then within 1 hour the second group also comes back into the first room, and those 8 or 10 papers, authors will be asked to sit on the stage along with the panelists, and then there'll be interaction and discussion going on about the papers that were presented, and what we have collectively learned in the process, and with interaction with the authors, and what are the next steps, where do we go, some advice, suggestions, follow up, and this will be documented so that we can then follow up during the coming year and see what progress everybody has made in moving to the next level. So so that will go on for about 45 minutes or so. So first there'll be a half an hour segment of 10 minutes each for the so-called experts. Then there'll be almost 1 hour where you all also, who are experts in your own way, will be making 8-minute presentations, and then everybody comes back into the larger room, and then the authors along with the panelists get on the stage, and there will be a moderated, facilitated discussion of some of the key points that are in common with all the papers, and also discussion about the follow-up that's relevant to the papers. And so this way we will engage all the authors actively in this group discussion, and the audience also will learn through this more active interaction rather than just a bunch of talking heads. And so we are going to experiment with this format. So this whole thing will take about 2.5 hours, and we'll have coffee around the corner somewhere, so that whoever wants to get up and have coffee for a couple of minutes comes back, coffee or tea. So we're going to play around with that format. And so the strict part of it, in order to maintain this format, we have to have all presentations to be 8 minutes. And here's Veena, who's going to explain to you how to make an efficient and very effective presentation, even if it's a 8-minute presentation. And I think if you cannot say anything important in 8 minutes, then you'll be wasting people's time. So I think it's important to be able to say important things in a short period of time with very clear, succinct slides, with proper preparation, and so on. And so over to you, Veena. I'm going to. It's up to you now.
Thank you, Krishna. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have a good group here. That's wonderful. I'm sure some of you are very experienced presenters. The others may be presenting for the first or maybe the second time. But the reason why we thought about doing this webinar is that in the previous conferences over the last 4 or 5 years, we found that some help is required here. The papers are of very high quality. They're getting better. They're getting much better. But the presentations somehow are there is some need to improve there. So hopefully this will help you. And so this is a good time to do it, because you're still in the process of preparing for your presentation. Okay, so here I think we'll begin with a poll question. Krishna, let's begin with a poll, because that's how I planned it.
Prompt some thinking, yeah. prompts an active dynamic environment. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go. I'm going to launch the poll. And this is a question, and all of you have been members of the audience when presentations have been made. The best way to learn about how to make presentations is to see what some speakers, presenters have made mistakes in. So where do you find most presenters deficient in one of these four? Select one. One is keeping time. Second, organizing content, sustaining focus. Third, speaking clearly and persuasively. And fourth, responding to questions. Which of these, in your mind, is the most that most presenters have problems with, are most deficient? Keep coming. About half of you have voted. Few more, come on in. Got almost 40 people here, so I need more responses. Okay, so I'm going to 5 seconds more and we'll close. Okay, here I'm going to share the results with you, and I don't know whether Veena, you may not be able to see it, but the largest percentage was organizing content and sustaining focus. 78% said that is what most presenters are deficient in. Organizing content and sustaining focus. The next is keeping time, which is 11%. Mm-hmm. And then the next is speaking clearly and persuasively, that is 7%. And then responding to questions, that is 4%. So yes, predominantly organizing content, sustaining focus, and some keeping time. So
wonderful, wonderful.
Hide the poll and you can move on.
Okay, thank you, Krishna. So you can know now why I actually wanted to get this poll, because then we can also focus, we can reorganize the focus of our own presentation. And this is exactly the expected result from the poll. Organizing content and sustaining focus is very difficult. Keeping time is also very, very difficult, because normally you're up against a challenge of doing that. So basically, we'll cover all this, and in the meantime, if you have any specific questions or problems that you have faced in your own presentations, or you're facing now while you're preparing your presentation, please send your question to Krishna, and we will have a little bit of question time in between, where I would love to answer these questions. So basically, any presentation is three steps. There's first planning, there's preparation, and then delivering it. Okay, all three are very important stages, and so the final result cannot be, you can't just say, okay, I still have a lot of time, I'm just going to put something together and I know that I have written the paper. So the complacence comes because you have written the paper, you have all the content. So you think, so what, I'm just going to get up and this is my paper, I know everything, I'm just going to get up. No, that's not. Presentation is the first thing that you need to keep in mind is that a presentation is totally different from writing a paper. Why? Because the audience is not reading, but listening to you. So that's a very big challenge. The reader has the liberty to go back and forth. I didn't understand this, so let me go back and reread this. The listener does not have that liberty. You have to get it right the first time. So there's, excuse me, there's no time for people to raise their hands and say, I didn't understand. Even so, we are presenting all the time. We are teachers and we think that we are presenting all the time. I'm so used to lecturing, but I'm hoping that this 1 hour that we spend together is going to be very useful to you, not only for this particular presentation in the conference, but even in your general presentation skills, because we are presenting all the time, right? So we are going to go over these 3 steps. So first is step 1, planning the presentation. So what is it that we want? We want an overall plan. And the overall plan is, first is your personal introduction, the topic or the title of the presentation, your thesis statement. We'll talk about each of them. now. So personal introduction should be very, and there are more points coming. The personal introduction should be very brief. Okay, I find immediately when people are at this stage, I know they're not going to keep time, because they've already taken extra time in talking about, I do this, I teach the master's course, then I do this, and I started teaching, and then I went from this college to that. Nobody's interested in that. You have to see what is the prime information and where to slot it. We'll go into a little bit deeper into micro planning, but personal introduction is very important. Why? Because you need to establish, you have a lot of challenge. The audience needs to accept you, right? The audience needs to accept you, sorry, as an expert in the area. So how do you establish your credibility? We'll come to this again, but you need to know how much time I can just take for personal introduction, and what are the key things that I want to talk about. My name, my affiliation, what college I belong to or where I'm teaching, and what is how many years. You want to establish your credibility by saying you have spent a lot of time on this particular topic, right? The title of the presentation, again, your paper will have a very long, often the research paper titles are generally very long. We can't change the title. We need to keep the title, but we need to pick a couple of keywords from the title. For example, if you just say your title is innovative strategy for creating teams in for project-based learning in a large classroom. Okay, it's a long title. What are the keywords here? Creating teams, large classroom, okay, project-based learning, because the teams can be created for several other things. Okay, so these are your keywords, and your entire presentation must revolve around these keywords. Okay, and your thesis statement is very important. Thesis statement is, what are we going to be doing now in this presentation? Okay, what is the key research area that this is your plan. Okay, and what were the results obtained? Very important. And then what are the impact of these results? And closure, very important. The closure is very important. Very often what happens is that people lose time, and then the chairperson is ringing the bell, and then you say, okay, so I stop here. Okay, and then that kind of leaves people a little bit of confusion. You need to plan. Okay, this is your plan. So you want to keep this plan in this order, and you talk about this. Okay, so you can, if you're making notes, you can make notes. You can ask, please email me, and I can send the presentation to you specifically. We are not sending to everyone, but if you think you need it, we can send it to you. Okay. The key issues to concern. What is my main objective? Okay. The main objective of any presentation is to persuade. Here you're persuading the audience about your innovative idea. So any presentation in the world, even in your lecture, you are selling a concept. You are persuading the students by saying that here is a problem, recognize the problem. Okay, you can make a presentation on the problem itself. Or here is a solution that works. So you're persuading people all the time. So one of the key things that we need to achieve is persuasion. So the idea is, at the end of my presentation, supposing let's take the same example, innovative strategy for creating teams for collaborative learning or project-based learning in a large classroom. So we all have large classrooms. We all do collaborative learning. So now, in the end, the success of your presentation is whether people agree with you or disagree with you. You will know if there are questions. You can see the interest or disinterest of the audience. You need to be very alert about all these things. Okay. How to be? Then my key issue in the preparation part is, how do I impress my audience? I need to establish my credibility. I need to establish the importance of the topic. I need to clarify what specific problem aspects have been addressed and establish the innovation. What is new about my research, and what was the result of this research, and how it was taken. Now, this is a very large agenda for 8 minutes, right? But it's very doable, extremely doable. You've already established your credibility in your introduction. So your introduction, people are not interested how many years you've been teaching, where all you taught. That's your personal history. People are interested in, why should I be listening to you? Okay, you've done research. Maybe you're just like any other research person. So, but you have to just talk about this research. Establish your credibility as a researcher in this area. Establish the importance of the topic, why this is important. Clarify what are the specific problems that I have addressed. Why do I need to do a research on this? And what was the new? But the focus is on the innovation. Okay. How to convey all the key information within the stipulated time. The stipulated time here is 8 minutes and maybe 2 minutes for the question. Normally, all conference presentations are never more than 10 minutes. Okay, so you need to always prepare for that. If it's a shorter, so prepare for something shorter. This is something more detailed. We'll talk about it in a little while. The key issues is how to sustain the focus throughout the presentation. It's very easy because you've done a lot of work. So if you have written a paper on a particular aspect, you have probably worked for 6 months on that topic, right? Or at least sometimes 3 years more. So so you know a lot, and it's the same mistake we make as professors when we are standing in front of the students. We know a lot, but they don't know. You are introducing the topic. You're introducing your new innovative idea. People don't know about it, okay? So little bit of this, little bit of background information, little bit of this, little bit of that. You need to pick and choose what should go into the presentation so that it is 7.5 minutes rather than 8 minutes. So on an index card, you know an index card. Index card is a small 3x5 inch little cards that you get. You can write down the keywords for the type from the title and make sure all your arguments are developed around those keywords. So what do I mean? Define the large classroom. Don't spend that. Large classroom is not your topic, but you tell them, okay, well, the large classroom is 70 plus or 65 plus students in a class. Okay. Collaborative learning. What do you mean? In once or twice a semester, you do collaborative project, or if it's a problem-based project, whatever you want to discuss that. And then creating teams is your keyword, really. So the bulk of your presentation should be on creating teams. What are the different problems people have about creating teams? How do you cover that? Okay. What kind of questions can be raised? So this is a very important point, not so much for the end of the presentation, but you need to fill in the gap. I personally, I always work with this in mind all the time. Where is the gap? What is it that people sitting there would want to know? So maybe they don't know what is collaborative learning. Okay, so I'm not going to spend 2 minutes on collaborative learning, but I can define the collaborative learning. Say, okay, collaborative learning is group work, whatever, just simply because that's not my key focus is on creating teams. So that is what you need to find out. Even if your title has 3-4 key words, which is the keyword that you need to focus on? That is how you need to organize your content around that most of the time. But you need to include other things as well. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about organizing the content. Okay, and then now we come to the preparing for the presentation. So we have our planning again. Who am I? What am I talking about? What did I do new? What was the result obtained? How did it solve the problem? and what am I going to be doing in future, okay, sort of things. This is your overall plan. And now you get ready for preparing the presentation. So preparing the presentation involves first selecting the content, okay. As I said, you have a lot of content. You have kind of 6-page paper. And now you've done a lot of research, you experimented with this, you experimented with that, but you have only 8 minutes or 7.5 minutes. If the presentation is 8 minutes, you are preparing for 7.5 minutes, okay? Then only it will be fine, and not saying, okay, I will manage, I will manage. No, 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 no. You don't manage. It's very frustrating for the audience to be just. In the first few minutes, I would say in a first minute or two, I know immediately that this presentation is going to go off time. Everything has to be very sharp and focused, okay? Structuring the content, okay, organizing. I use the word structuring, but how do I organize? First of all, what is the content for my presentation? How do I structure it? What comes first? After this, after this, after this, okay? Where do I give an example? Where I'm going to give a pause? We'll talk about in this. Creating the visuals, okay? What visuals? How do I create my slides? What kind of slides? What kind of graphics? What kind of visuals I'm going to have? And then what is my closing? How do I close? What am I going to be closing with? Okay. So we're going to go over all these different components. First of all, selecting content. Okay, I want to show you something. This is what is called very famous way of managing content. It's called the pyramid technique. So when I'm preparing, I want to start with the broad base, and you need to start with at least 3 times the content required for the presentation. So basically, we say a general rule of the thumb is 1 slide per minute, okay? It should be even less because you'll use bullets, but 1 minute per slide. So if
I would emphasize that again and again and again, very loudly, that 1 minute per slide. Absolutely, 90% of people break that rule.
Yeah, and then you don't need to clutter with the, and I will tell you why that rule gets broken. So when I'm preparing, remember the pyramid always, okay? You're starting with a broad base. This is the preparation stage. It's not presentation yet, okay? So I want to have, on stage 1, I want to have 30 slides, okay, ready with me. Because I want to be rich, I want to pick the right ones, or I want to merge slide 1 and 2 and pick the right one, I want to merge 3, 4, 5 into 1 slide, because I don't know. But in the beginning, you need to have at least 3 times the content. You have it. You have 6 pages of the paper, right? Required for the presentation. For a 10-minute presentation, you should have available with you 30-minute relevant material, arguments, references, references from expert if you want to use, examples, etc. Okay.
One point I'll make there, when you try to fit 30 minutes into a larger amount of content into a smaller number of slides, then the answer is not to make the font size smaller and put it into fewer slides.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. Krishna, that's very good, very good. Yeah, it's the content. Exactly. We're talking about the content. We're talking about the content. Because if you start with only 10 slides, you don't know what you're missing also. So if you have a large canvas, you have a large material, you can say, this will be very interesting. We are also thinking of the audience. You are very lucky that your audience will be the right audience. Sometimes you're making a presentation to an audience who has absolutely no clue about what's going on. You are presenting to an audience who are also professors themselves. They're scientists. Many of them will be from the same area. Now remember, this is the preparation pyramid. This pyramid is going to get inverted when you're going to present. You're going to present the other way around. You're going to present with the with the most important information coming first. Okay, so we'll talk about all this, but you need to remember that we're going to have one slide per minute, and the slides have to be laid out very clearly, not cluttered. I have some very important and very key information for you, and you can actually memorize that for a lifetime, even for your lectures. Okay.
And even your example of your slides, Veena, is perfect. I'm looking at each of your slides. It's so very well planned. And not too many words, a few figures to illustrate things. I think it's a perfect way to prepare a slide.
Thank you, Krishna. Yes, so managing time is one of the very big challenges. We have seen that we have sitting, and then sometimes I feel very sorry for the presenter, because the presenter has already taken 2 minutes to introduce himself, and then I'm saying, oh my God, when is he or she going to present their main effort? They have worked so hard on that. Okay, so managing time, be sure about the available time. So here now, Krishna has already told you it's going to be 8 minutes and 2 minutes. Mostly conference presentations are around 8 to 10 minutes with 2 minutes for question time. Sometimes you do not even have question time. Sometimes the question time is just pooled at the end, depending on that. But whatever time is available, if you have not been informed, supposing your paper gets accepted in a very large conference. Now we are lucky that Krishna is so well organized, and and he informs about everything.
As you said, we will pool the 2 minutes in the panel discussion. When you all get on the stage, you'll be asked questions.
Yes, exactly. So there are different formats people have to do. But what the point I was trying to make is, most often the organizers don't take the trouble to inform you so well. So it's your responsibility to find out how much time will I have. Okay. And the bigger the conference, the lesser time you will have. That's my experience. Okay. And you need to prepare 30 seconds under the given time. Okay. It is best to write down the narrative for each slide. Narrative means, what am I going to speak about this slide? Okay, in the beginning. Later on, when you are kind of very experienced presenter, you know exactly what you're going to say. Okay, practice your presentation several times to get it to under even 1 minute of allocated time, because you may suddenly then have when you may get more ideas. You want to be under, because you want to close properly. Okay, anticipate questions and prepare concise and sharp responses for these. And they also, when you are anticipating questions, they also are very useful in helping you to fill in the gaps. Okay, now here is your prescription for managing time. Personal introduction, no more than 20 seconds. Okay, now it's very challenging. You please note this down, and you have to very clearly give your name. Remember, particularly if you're in an international conference, people don't know this type of names, right? So our names, just like when we have, let's say, some German or Hungarian presenter, we are used to Tom, John, and Thomas and all these names, but some of them have very difficult, we find them very difficult. All Indian names are very difficult for foreigners. Okay, so take time to pronounce your name properly, have a slide, but very brief, no more than 20 seconds for your personal introduction. But the key thing here in the introduction is not where all you transferred and how long you did this and all. Focus is on establishing your credibility as a speaker for this conference. So you can say, I have been working on this is a very big problem for most engineering colleges. We all want to do collaborative learning, but we have a big issue with creating teams. And that is why I started working on this 6 months ago and have had several models. And you can see that 20 seconds is a very long time. You know that most of our advertisements are less than 10 seconds, right? And they say a lot of things. So they are your good example of how you want to present your personal introduction. Okay. The topic or the title, picking out the keywords, focus. When you pick out means when you have to say, keep the topic most probably of what you have it on the paper. But when you read the title, emphasize on the keywords like the challenge of, or the innovative, or the strategy for creating teams in for collaborative learning in a large classroom. So I'm emphasizing on creating teams, collaborative learning, and large classrooms. Okay, so we don't have time to talk about collaborative learning. We don't have too much time to talk about large classroom. We don't need to. But once you emphasize that in your speech, people know that you're not talking about creating teams. Generally, if you're a class of 20 people, it's much easier. But if you have 70, how do you do that? Okay. Your thesis statement, what is the objective? So you can say this was the problem. The thesis statement must be, write it down several times, sharpen it. And what happens is that, let's face it, English is not our first language. And although we are pretty proficient as compared to the rest of the world, but the language itself has a lot of scope for fine-tuning the words. So when you write down things, you can say, okay, these, like, I think I can find one word for these 6 words, right? And then you will have to work on it, memorize it. You don't memorize a presentation ever, but you do need to have it right in your head all the time. And this will happen if you write down. Always write down. The core research, background information, quick. Your work, yes. What's new and different, how it was done, and why. Good amount, that's the key part. 5 minutes on that, okay? Not too much on background information. If I start talking about collaborative learning, 5 minutes is nothing. It's a subject in itself. You know that some of you have done the certification program. There's a whole 2-week module on collaboration learning, okay? What was
So
your work?
That's one area. That's I want to emphasize that point you made. A lot of people will tend to define collaborative learning and use up 3 minutes to define
Yes.
collaborative learning, where the audience already knows what collaborative learning is about. And so you have to focus on what is new and what you've done.
Yeah, and how it was done and why it was done. Why did you can say, you can have a little small personal story that I'm very keen on doing collaborative learning. I always have this trouble. So then I came up with this idea. Okay, what were the results obtained? Very important. This again, 2 minutes here. And then I made this for a 10-minute, let's say 8 minutes and 2 minutes for questions. And conclusion 1 minute. I'm very keen on conclusion. 45 seconds to 1 minute for your conclusion. Not saying, okay, bye, then thank you very much. No, that's not a conclusion. And I'm telling you, I learned this with the law. First, my personal story is that when I started teaching, I was so passionate about what I was teaching. I was always overtime. I always had the next class standing outside, and I'm still going on. Okay, and then I will just say, oh, okay, sorry. This was my beginning as a teacher. And then I realized, oh my God, what a way to finish, what a way to leave everything. It's like cluttering up the kitchen and not cleaning it up. You know, it's not, the closure is a very important thing. Later on, when I started reading and when I started getting more into this education technology, I came across a lot of literature which just said that closure is really the key part of your lecture as well, because closure is what people remember as they're leaving out. They've probably forgotten the 7-8 minutes. I mean, they will remember some part of it, but closure is very important. So please, my special request to you, keep 45 seconds to 1 minute for your closure, okay? And you can talk about in the closure that we want to continue working on this, and I want next semester I want to do this, I want to do that, whatever, and then you can summarize. We'll talk about
Let me add a comment to that, Veena.
Yes, please, Krishna.
Let me just quickly add a comment to that. Yeah, see, one very important thing I do with my students, when they're graduate students, is I tell them, after you make a presentation, the audience should be able to go out and explain it to some friend in less than a minute what you said in your 10-15 minutes. The audience should be able to go out and explain to somebody else. If you're that clear, they'll be able to do that. They'll go out and explain in 30 seconds or 45 seconds what you said and what your conclusion was. That should be your goal.
Exactly. So in this, conclusion will come. We have a slide on that, how to conclude. Later on, we will look at it. So this is the rough plan. But as I said, when most of the time personal introduction, the topic, you know that person has already lost the presentation, because they are already 2 minutes onto that. So this is what you need to practice. Okay, so sit down, write down your personal introduction, and read it again with the time, with the stopwatch. It is on your cell phone. Use a stopwatch to see how long it takes, and then you say, nah, this I can maybe substitute something more interesting in place of this. Okay. So content selection, this used to be a very, very challenging task, because you have 6 pages of beautiful material. You think everything is important. So what do I select? But I have only 5 minutes for my content, right? Presentation. So I like to share with you the formula that I always have, and that is called the must, should, could formula. Okay. What is it?
Another quick comment. A quick comment on the previous slide. Just a quick comment.
Go back.
Having pictures that a little bit funny is very useful. It kind of adds a little humor to it, like this cartoon character. So it may release adds something, some value to the talk. Go ahead.
Thank you. And that is, for that you need to that is why you need to start early for preparation. I mean, I've been teaching for like maybe 30 years now, but every time I have a lecture, I review mine, and I have all the material. I mean, sometimes there's so much material you don't know what to do with it, but then whenever there is any lecture, I prepare again. So that's what you need to do. You need to, because you care for your students, you care for the participants and their time, the valuable time. So if we put a collective time, Krishna's time, my time, your time, we have some 47 people here. 1 hour converts into 47 hours, and it's very precious. The 8 minutes are very precious. So this is how, first of all, I want to pick from my 33 times the material, which is the must. Which part is the must part that I have to convey? And the must, should, could formula works very well for the lectures as well. Okay, so when you're planning your lecture, you should first say, what is the core concept that I want to talk about? What are my 2 key examples that I want to elaborate using this? So this is the content that you will pick first. The must, that is what I did, how I did, what is the problem, how I tried to solve it, what was my procedure, and what was my result. Okay. Should is the portion which must be covered, because it should be covered, because so that the must can be understood properly. So maybe you want to talk about define the large classroom, maybe you want to define the collaborative learning and teams, etc., etc. And could, you must have, so you must have 3 baskets of content. Could is, if so let's say it has happened with me once. The speaker next to me did not show up for whatever reason, and the chairman said, okay, you can take a couple more minutes. Okay. Oh, I was delighted, because I now I can share more information, but I need to have that information with you. So the good part is, going to cover your questions, responses to the questions. Okay, if there be a question, this is what I'm going to be doing. If somebody has this kind of doubt, this is what I'm going to use. So if you sift your 33 times the content into these 3 baskets, you are in very happy situation, and this gives you a lot of confidence. We all, as soon as the speaker walks in, we know how confident the speaker is, and there's only one recipe to confidence, and that is preparation. Preparation, preparation, preparation. The better prepared you are, the more confident you will be. So there is nothing you can say, okay, I get very nervous when I go there. Yeah, everybody gets nervous, and nervousness is good to a certain extent. We'll talk about the delivery later on. But this formula works very beautifully to have for your lectures, any presentation, must, should, could. This is must. I have to convey this in my 5 minutes that I have. Okay. Guidelines for preparing slides. I want you to take this very seriously. 1 point per slide. Okay. So if you're talking about teams, and then that's you're going to have 5 minutes. So you have 5 slides on that. So your slide 1 will be, let's say, types of students in your large class. Okay, there are people who are very well informed. There, whatever, you can have 1 slide on the profile of the large class. Use the same font, combination of fonts for the entire presentation. This is very annoying. Sometimes people have, just to make the slide, they think it's attractive. They will have 1 line in 1 font. They have the second line in another color, in an italics. It's very disturbing. You need to have, because this is not the time. You want people to read quickly and to understand, okay? Select a sans serif font. Sans serif font, you know that, but your engineers, is this fonts which have a lot of curvy ends. You know, we need something straight and flat. Arial is supposed to be the best, so you can safely go with Helvetica is another one. There are many you can experiment with, but not something very fancy. Okay, a very straight, plain. Minimum recommended font size 30 points. Okay, this is the key thing. I want to put it in your head. No more than 7 to 9 lines, 7 to 9 words per line. This is the key formula. No more than 7 to 9 lines, 7 to 9 words per line. If you go with this formula, you will never go wrong. Okay. Use color meaningfully. So I have had all kinds of colors, combinations. You can use, we need a contrast, right, in the slides. You can have a light color and you can have a very simple color on it. You can have a very dark slide. I could show you example. The dark blue with the white font also looks good. But the basically idea is you're not here to distract the audience, or they're just trying to, maybe somebody sitting right at the back is not able to see. You want them to see everything. Also, just put things in bullets, right? Don't write down. I have seen people long descriptions in each bullet. That's not the point. Because if people are reading, they are not listening to you, right? You are actually, it's a very nice way. One of my professors used to always say, you're actually competing with the projector. You're competing with the projector. So you want them to pay attention to you, okay? And they want to quickly see what it is, right? And then you want to explain, not write everything there. So you don't want them to be reading it, okay? That is why never ever copy material from, I think I have some more stuff here. No, I'm going to go back here. I think I forgot to put there. Never ever copy graphs or tables from a textbook or from a paper. Supposing your paper has a table. Very often people make this mistake. The same table I photocopy and I put it on my slide. You cannot do that because your table was designed for reading, not for projection. Okay, so don't do that. You create the table again. If you think it is very important for you to give the table, create the table again. It's not going to take, well, it takes less than what, a couple of minutes to create a table. It's your material. You're going to be doing it again. But never ever photocopy stuff from the textbooks and put it on the slide. Okay, don't ever do that. And then now we come to the delivering your presentation. Krishna, are there any questions? If you just
I mean, there are some questions, and we have.
Okay, so maybe I would like. This is a good point to put.
Yeah, let's take a couple of questions, and then we have to also be conscious of our time here. So let me see.
Yeah, I have the timeline.
A few people have asked for the copy so that they can present recording so they can share it with other people. That's fine. The let's see, what one person asked, what is the font size? I said use the same font size that Yuna is using. One person says, should every author speak? That's an important point. If there are multiple authors and if you have only 8 minutes, I don't know if you have time to let more than one person speak. So you might want to comment on that in multiple author papers. And then another thing, please tell how much time to be spent on must, should, and could, and what do you mean by 1 point per slide? Go ahead.
Okay, good question. Excellent questions. So the must part is that you want people to know. That is the part of your research. That is the must. So if it is the 5 minutes, you may just have the proportion. The bulk of the time is the must. Okay, so if we are keeping 5 minutes for the core research, and the result definitely is a part of the must, and closure is a part of the must. Okay, so I would just keep maybe 1 minute for could, should, and just keep could is not counted in this time. Could is only in your pocket. Could is if the occasion arises, and we have not counted this time in questions. So could is your back material, your additional material in your pocket. Okay, you are not. Sometimes I like to give, I have done this in one of the conferences, something that I found very useful. I give it as a handout to the participants. Okay, I have in those days we never had any resources. I have done my own, spent on my own money on photocopying for the audience. It doesn't matter because this is what you want. So the could part, if you think it's very important, can also be given as handout, but don't let it eat up your time. So that was one question. So the font is 28 to 30. 30 is very good because you're going to have some smaller font in between also. So multiple authors.
Multiple speakers, authors, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, multiple authors, that is a bit of a problem. I think what we can do, what we, I confess I've had two presenters, but not multiple. But in multiple presenters, I think you have to stand up and decide who is the best person to speak out. I will talk about the spoken image just now, something new that you may not have know about. So who is the best speaker, who has the best pronunciation, who is the best delivery, that person should present the 5 minutes. But I would have all four at the introduction time, and I would say this paper was prepared by all four of us, and each one of the person can introduce quickly. Then the 20 seconds will be, of course, will increase to 40-45 seconds. Now you need to then find out where you can take the time out for that. Okay. And
so my recommendation would be for 8 minutes, only one speaker. Otherwise, you'll waste so much time coordinating unless you have rehearsed it multiple times to the perfection with a group of people. Take only one author. It's okay because even if the other people have done a lot of work, they give them a chance some other time to make a presentation.
Yes, but I would have all four of them at the time of introduction and all four of them at the time of closure, maybe, if you want.
Recognize them in the audience. Make sure if they're in the audience, make sure you recognize them at least. That so and so is part of the.
They can come out. They should be there, and they could come out. And then one person.
If they bring them up, some people might want to start talking. That people have a compulsion to start talking if they're up there. That's the danger. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So and please keep the questions coming. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So then delivering the presentation is the key part, right? So you can have the best prepared presentation, poorly delivered, it's gone. Okay. But at the same time, you cannot depend on your speaking skills to make a great presentation. And you can say, okay, oh, I speak very well, so you can fool the audience for 30 seconds, but you need to have the content right, okay, well organized in a proper manner. So preparation is very, very important. Both, I would say, 60-40. So you cannot just delivery is 60%. Okay, so 40 the preparation is extremely important. So what is spoken image? This is my term, and I love it, because what happens is that we sometimes we remember the presenters, right? And everybody has a speaking image. We don't realize that. We are always spending a lot of time in what am I going to wear, which tie to wear. I'm going to get this get my hair done. Should I wear a sari? Should I wear this? Should I wear that? Those images are important. There's a physical image, but there's a spoken image, and we don't focus too much on it. What is my delivery? Will people be able to understand me? Is my pronunciation right, etc.? That is your spoken image. I have a very nice saying that I use for my class. As Krishna said, this is my communication is my expertise, and this is one of the things that I teach a lot. And it says that when you look at a person, you know something about the person. But when you hear the person speak, you know all about the person. So your speaking image is extremely important. And please, all of us, if you have small children, focus on this. Bring it to their attention and groom them to speak well. Okay. So this is my graph. I mean, I presented. This is the spoken image has several components in it. The fluency in target language, very important. I know English is not our mother tongue, but this is our business, this is our professional language. It is our responsibility to develop fluency. The voice, energy level, gestures, pauses, pace, all this makes your spoken image, okay? Voice management, volume, clarity, pace, nervous versus relaxed voice, energy level. Okay, all these things are extremely important. So sometimes even I have a small voice. If you think, oh, this is what my small voice, invest in a microphone. You get these lapel microphones for, I don't know how much they cost in India, but they're like $60. So make sure that you have clarity in speech, pauses, the pace, and not too fast, not too slow, because slow pace will make people go to sleep. Fast, they will get, they will be struggling to understand what you're saying. I think, and I'm guilty of this too, as Indians, we mostly speak very fast. I had to train myself to speak slowly because I teach ESL students also. And so this is something we need to know. The energy level is extremely important, because the energy level shows your passion, really, and it's not something that you can plan. It just happens automatically. What is projection? Projection is not mumbling, not keeping the words in your mouth, but putting them out, right? Clarity. So projection and clarity are two sides of the same coin. So you can never be clear if your projection is not right. So work on all these things, okay? Body language, dress appropriately. I'm not defining, but you know what appropriate means. Make sure that your hair are well groomed. So I have this big issue with the young girls, young ladies, not so much, with short hair, and not very short hair, but short hair. The hair are coming all over the face, and they're all the time concerned about putting their hair back. Why don't you put a clip? Why don't you do something else to your hair? You want to focus on your presentation and the audience, right? Keep your hands visible, because in communication, hands are very important, okay? That they establish your honesty, your transparency. I don't want to go into all this, but it's very important, okay? Maintain good posture, maintain good eye contact with the entire audience. I've underlined the word entire, because I find very often the speakers are only addressing one section of the audience. They probably have their friends sitting there, and they're looking for support. They're looking for moral support, and they are nodding, yes, okay. and you see that, but you should pan. They say like a camera pans the eye, includes the entire audience in your eye contact. Okay. Do not point at the screen. So what happens is that either use a pointer. Managing the screen is a part of your body language, because if you're just going to go all the time pointing on the screen, there are a lot of shadows that come and they distract the audience. Okay. Do not pace around. So just luckily with the screen, you don't have much scope for pacing around. But as I said, this is also very important for. Okay, so we are just running out of time. I'm just going to go quickly over this. Choose the right words. Be aware of difference between reading and listening. So you don't use the words from your paper. I have had this a lot of time happening, that people are just reading out from their paper because they think they're presenting the paper, but this is listening. So change the entire, use conversational vocabulary, simple words, short sentences. Explain abbreviations. Don't think people know, because nowadays there are so many abbreviations, explanations for the similar abbreviations. Learn to pronounce the technical terms correctly. You have free resources, Webster.com. Punch in, go to Webster.com, punch in the word. You can have the British pronunciation, you can have the American pronunciation, you can listen to it hundreds of times, any amount of time. Dictionary.com, there are two different very good resources for checking excuse me, pronunciation of your technical term. Krishna, I'll take a couple more minutes to finish this. Do not read from the notes, because you're losing your eye contact. Okay. Okay. Use effective transitions. Like, another point to be considered here. Now I would like to draw your attention to having looked at major, etc., etc. Okay.
Or you can just transition. You can say, now we have seen this in this slide. In the next slide, we're going to see this.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but link, the idea we are making here is, don't just transit from, just don't go from slide to slide. You just need to transit from one slide to another. Okay. Okay. Conclusion. The effective conclusion. Plan time for powerful closing statement. Just like you will. So I do not ever advise memorizing the presentation, but I do advise memorizing the opening, your thesis statement, and memorizing your closing statement. There's no harm in that. It should not come out as memorized, but it must be in your head very, very clear. Okay. Summarize the main points covered under core research and results. In closure, we don't want to talk about personal introduction. We don't want to talk about the topic. We only talk about your research and the results. Okay. Invite questions. Okay. And this is important. Give your email on this slide, and if you have 4 people, give all 4 emails on the slide for further questions, suggestions, and very often collaborations. It's very interesting. People come back sometimes and say, okay, I'm also interested in doing this. Can I be partner with your organization? So coming back to the multiple speakers, you must have all 4 emails of the people. And I would say at the introduction time and even at the closure time, if they're there, you should practice together. In fact, you're very lucky if you have multiple presenters. They can be your critics, and they can help you prepare the presentation well. Okay. So anyway, and then that's how you can have a slide for questions.
Great. One question that came up, and I think which should be very clearly, strongly responded to is,
yes.
One question says, should we have put the list of references on the slide? I would say no, absolutely not.
No.
References. Some people put up a list of references.
Yeah,
it's absolutely not. It's a waste of time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because basically again you need to understand the difference between your paper and presentation. Paper is already given. It's there. People who are interested will read your paper. Now, a lot more people will read your paper if your presentation is good, and they will see the references. But coming to references, if you have a diagram, if you have taken something from, if you're projecting, let's say a diagram or algorithm taken from Krishna's book, you need to recognize that underneath, put a little line and say, give the reference there, but not a list of references. But if you have taken something from somewhere, you need to acknowledge it.
Can you good? I mean, one question came up. What is an effective concluding statement? Could you make a concluding statement for this webinar that you gave?
Okay. So the concluding statement would be that make sure that you plan your presentation, give enough time, make sure that you plan your presentation, make sure that you can select the content properly, organize it the way you want it, keep the time 0.5 second, 30 seconds under the given time, and be well groomed, prepare again and again, and time yourself. So this will be my concluding statement.
Great. So that's exactly the thing. It's not very difficult. You just have to highlight the main points and speak to it. That's in a forceful manner. That's what it is. Great. Good example.
So I hope it's useful.
Yeah, this is great. Fantastic presentation, and I think people loved it. And somebody said, okay, what's the 1 point per slide? Did you say 1 point per slide, or?
I said 1 point. 1 point means one thematic point.
Concept,
one thematic point. It's not one bullet. It's not one bullet. You have 7 to 9 bullets, but 1 point. Just like, for example, let me go back quickly and give you an example from there. Okay, just 1 second. If I here. This is 1 point, overall plan. What is my overall plan?
Right.
Let me just put it down.
Just to consider and so on. Yeah.
What is, when I'm planning, these
are
the
1 point, one theme, one particular point per slide, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So this is the overall plan is 1 point, and there is only one. So here I don't want to talk about the content, the organization, the time scheme, and all that. Here I want to talk, what are the 5 or 6 things that I need to start my planning with.
Yeah, and I think a couple of people are pushing back on the references thing. Okay, so clearly everybody understands that we should not put all the references, but if there are 1 or 2 references that you are using as the basis of your discussion, you can point out that so and so author did this, and this, and that is an important part that I have used as a hypothesis, or that I want to disprove in this particular paper. That you can approach the references in that way. If there are 1 or 2, you can use them in the main content of your focus of the presentation.
You can. I would never have, Krishna. My recommendation would be not to have a slide for references. But if you want,
that's what I meant.
Yeah, if you want to weave in your research, and you can say that although Professor Vidula has also done a lot of work on this, and his recommendation is to do this, but I found it did not work in my class, and I have made a change in that. That's okay.
Yeah. How about literature survey?
No. There's no need for literature survey. This is not a paper. It's a presentation. Right. The literature survey is for the paper. Mm-hmm. Please separate the 2 activities completely. This is presenting your research and the results of the research. And when you specify the problem, when you specify the issue, you can leave in a little bit of background information in that, little bit, but it's a part of that. You can't take literature survey. There's no need for literature survey.
Right, absolutely. So you're not just picking up the paper and putting it into slides. You're actually, that's the whole point of today's presentation. Yeah.
That is for reading. This is for listening. So make that big distinction. And therefore, the listening has to be right the first time. There is no going back and listening again and again. Okay.
Great. Okay, fantastic talk. Great job, Veena. I think we've run past the time. So even though a lot of people are still waiting and wanting to learn, I think we will if you want, we will send you the recording and the slides. And so we have been recording it. So thank you so much, Veena. Again, I repeat, all of you who are presenting, which will almost all of you are the people who are presenting, 8 minutes. 8 slides
Yeah.
only. Okay, 8
And
minutes.
we are
And follow the
expecting
guideline.
we are expecting very good presentations, and
Absolutely. From it,
you're
there's
capable
45
of doing
people.
that. And
Yeah,
my secret hope is that you're taking all this information to your classroom as well.
absolutely. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. And good
Okay,
luck. See you
thank
all at the conference. Thank you.
Okay, Krishna, I'm sending you the revised TPs this by this evening.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.